Part 12. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 111. Dr. Rocky shook his head. Sir, I'm not joking. I was surprised when I heard you talk about Wang Ling's achievements, but he does have battlefield phobia. This kind of psychological disorder is actually very normal, and also it's very common, especially among the recruits. Many people have it, and it takes a long period of training to gradually alleviate it. Colonel Lovsky was still unconvinced. You are talking about recruits, but is Wang Ling a recruit? Have you ever seen any recruit with the rank of sergeant? Have you seen any soldier with battlefield phobia who can lead a small team to sweep through the alliance? From the military base. Dr. Rocky smiled bitterly. The strangest thing about this matter is that Wang Ling has been on the battlefield for a long time and has made great achievements. It stands to reason that both time and experience have passed this period of fear. But he is just so abnormal. The disease broke out only after the glory, and it was a sudden outbreak, and the symptoms were much more serious than those of ordinary soldiers. Colonel Lovsky was speechless. He frowned and felt annoyed for a long time before asking, is it possible that Wang Ling has experienced something during this period that made him scared? Dr. Lodge was also in a dilemma. It should be like this, but I really can't figure out what experience can make him change so much. As the conversation between the two of them progressed, Zhao Pingwang on the side finally couldn't help but interrupt. Sir, Wang Ling did show some abnormalities a few days ago. Oh? What's abnormal? I went out for inspection a few days ago and saw Wang Ling standing alone by the base wall in a daze. I went to stay with him for a while, and he actually asked me why I wanted to fight. Zhao Pingwang quickly recounted the experience. After finishing speaking, Colonel Lovsky became anxious. Why didn't you tell me earlier? He had clearly started to get sick at that time. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so anxious to send the Eagle Squad to attack. Suddenly the image of a role model can no longer be maintained. I didn't think that much at the beginning. Besides, didn't you believe it just now? How could I have thought of battlefield phobia at the beginning? I just thought Wang Ling was being pretentious. Then why does he ask that? What has he experienced during these days? I don't know about this. He seems to have been staying with the members of the Eagle team in the base. What's wrong with him? Eagle Squadron? Go and call Sun Dehua. Why? After receiving the order, King Zhaoming hurried out and quickly brought Sun Dehua to the command post. Sun Dehua came to the command post less frequently than Wang Ling, but this battlefield veteran was quite dashing. When he arrived, he gave a standard military salute. Sir, Sun Dehua is here to report. Colonel Lovsky waved his hand casually. Don't bother me. Let me ask you, did Wang Ling have any special experiences during this period? After hearing this, Sun Dehua thought for a moment, then shook his head like a rattle. No, the captain has been staying with us all the time. He has no special experience. Sir, how is the captain now? What disease has he got? Okay, stop asking so much and get out. Yes. Wang Ling's experience is actually simple to say. He suddenly learned about the hidden dangers of the different dimensional system. He was frightened, but he couldn't let go of his comrades. He was too entangled in his heart. However, as characters in the Red Alert world, how could Colonel Lovsky and the others know this? After taking away Sun Dehua, all three of them were in trouble. After some time, Colonel Lovsky asked, Rocky, what should we do now? How should Wang Ling's phobia be treated? Rocky was helpless. Sir, I tried to enlighten Wang Ling before, but he was very stubborn. He couldn't listen to anything I said. I had no idea what to do. I could only give him enough time to let him recover on his own. During this period, please don't let him go to the battlefield again. Not going to the battlefield, Colonel Lovsky crossed his arms and frowned deeply. Isn't it a pity?
this Wang Ling has played such a role on the battlefield that he was suddenly assigned to the logistics department. Isn't he a man of limited talent at his position? Moreover, he is now at the peak of his aura in the base, and if he is suddenly delegated, what will the other teams think? Dr. Lodge had no further answer to this question. Instead, it was King Xiaoping who was persuading, there is nothing we can do about it, sir. Wang Ling's current condition is really not suitable for guarding in the base. We can only wait for him to return to normal. Having said this, King Xiaoping suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, sir, when Wang Ling came to the base on his first day, he showed his love for police dogs. Since he can't be at the base during this period, then just transfer him to train a police dog for a period of time. Hey, that's it? Wang Ling didn't know that the coalition base was arranging where he would go, and he was already placed in the hospital ward. Of course Wang Ling knew what his disease was. He also knew that after this incident, it would be difficult for him to stay in the base, so now he was quite confused and conflicted. It was already nighttime, but Wang Ling didn't feel sleepy at all. He didn't even want to return to the real world. He just lay on the windowsill of the ward and stared outside blankly. But in the darkness, Wang Ling could not see his future. It was late at night, and everything around was so quiet, except for the chirping of cicadas from a big tree next to the hospital, which accompanied the silent night. After a long time, Wang Ling finally felt sleepy and fell asleep in a daze. When he woke up the next day, Wang Ling had eaten with the other injured people. While he was going for his usual morning run, Xiaoping Wang finally arrived at the hospital in an anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. After finding Wang Ling, King Xiaoping didn't say anything tactfully to him. He made it clear directly, Wang Ling, you should also know that your current situation is not suitable for you to continue to guard the base. So we discussed it and decided to let you first go to the police dog training base to train police dogs. When you look away, you will come back. I know, this position sounds good. Wang Ling smiled bitterly. Xiaoping Wang looked at him and couldn't help but sigh, you are such a strange person. Okay, let's not say more. Come back to the base with me and say goodbye to the Eagle Squad. Good. Later, after the two were discharged from the hospital, they got into the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle together. After a period of traveling quickly, they finally returned to this familiar base and found the familiar group of comrades. In order to maintain the role of role model, the base did not disclose Wang Ling's condition. They only said that Wang Ling was injured and was temporarily transferred out of the base. Naturally, the Eagle Squad also heard this result, and is now gathering at the station, waiting for Wang Ling. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 112. Team Leader. After seeing Wang Ling, the members of the Eagle Squad all gave a military salute. The whole team was very impressive. They all knew that Wang Ling was here to say goodbye, and they had discussed in advance that they would put on the best possible show to see Wang Ling off today. However, if you look carefully, many of these people have red eyes, and they don't seem to want to face this scene. Not only them, the tip of Wang Ling's nose was also a little sore, but he resisted and did not transfer the sourness to his eyes, and waved his hand towards the Eagle Squadron. Stop shouting like that, now I am no longer the captain of the Eagle Squadron. No, you are. No one has this qualification except you, Sun Dehu almost roared in reply, which made Wang Ling stunned. Not to be outdone, the others shouted in unison, Captain. Although it was a virtual world, these people and these words shocked Wang Ling's heart. He couldn't help but turn red and cursed, you idiots, I'm here to say goodbye. You guys are still doing this, will you let me go? If you can't leave, then leave. Wouldn't it be nice to stay at the base to recuperate? Sun Dehu disagreed. But King Xiaoping scolded him from the side, nonsense, this is a battlefield, and there is an allied base that has not been destroyed.
Wang Ling stayed here to recuperate. Wouldn't that harm him? Team Eagle was speechless. After some time, Sun Dehu asked, Captain, what is your illness? Is it serious? Wang Ling smiled bitterly and shook his head. Instead of answering him, he stepped forward and patted Sun Dehu on the shoulder. You are such a reckless man. You have been targeting me since I first came here. Sometimes I really want to talk to you again, have a fight. Captain, I can't beat you. But if a fight can make you stay, we will fight you one by one, Sun Dehu replied, glaring at Wang Ling. Wang Ling was also amused, but he didn't take it seriously. He smiled and said, now that the Eagle Squadron is strong, you will temporarily act as captain after I leave. Don't bring down the Eagle Squadron. Don't worry, Captain, it won't happen. We will wait for you to come back, and we will let you see a powerful Eagle team, Sun Dehu hurriedly promised. Wang Ling felt relieved and casually chatted with the others, then deliberately dismissed them and returned to the camp to simply pack some things. Before the Eagle team came back, Wang Ling had already taken his luggage and found the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. Just as he was about to get in the car, Zhao Pingwang slowly walked over from the side. Why, do you just want to leave so quietly without letting the Eagle squad come to see you off? Wang Ling looked back at him, shook his head and said, no, I don't want to see that scene and feel uncomfortable. Brother Zhao, thank you very much for taking such good care of me these days. TCH, if you want to thank me, then adjust your condition as soon as possible. We need you very much on the battlefield now, King Xiaoping stared at Wang Ling and said. Wang Ling didn't answer anything, just sighed, turned around and got into the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, one person per vehicle, and quickly left the base. After leaving the base, Wang Ling finally couldn't bear it anymore and started crying loudly while sitting in the tracked vehicle. Wang Ling's current psychology is also very contradictory. After learning about the hidden dangers of the different dimensional system, he did make up his mind not to enter the red alert world again, but after just one day, he found it difficult to adapt. Although it was just a virtual world, Wang Ling, who had never been a soldier in reality, found that he couldn't let go of these lovely comrades. At this time, Uncle He finally spoke. Why are you bothering? How good were you before you knew the death situation in the different dimensional system? But now, you are not even as good as a new recruit. Looking at Wang Ling's current situation, Uncle He also felt that iron could not turn into steel. But Wang Ling had no intention of answering him now, and was still crying. It lasted for a long time before she gradually stopped crying and leaned on the seat to adjust her emotions as much as possible. At this point, Wang Ling could not change anything. He was about to face a new living environment. He no longer had to face the cruelty of the battlefield, and Wang Ling did not want to bring the fear of the battlefield there. This earth rock runway is long and narrow, with no end as far as the eye can see. Anti-aircraft crawler vehicles ran over it, stirring up dust along the way and getting further and further away. After galloping for a long time, the tracked vehicle finally stopped. The police dog training base has arrived. Wang Ling took a few deep breaths in the tracked vehicle, finally adjusted his emotions, and got out of the car with his luggage. After sending Wang Ling to his destination, the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle didn't wait too long. He turned around and galloped out, quickly leaving Wang Ling's sight. Only then did Wang Ling turn around and look at the police dog training base. The nature of this place is somewhat similar to that of a military camp, and the surrounding construction is also similar. But the difference is that the barracks are for training new soldiers, but here they are training police dogs. The number of soldiers is not large, but there are separate dormitory buildings and many dog kennels. After taking a look, Wang Ling lowered his head, picked up his luggage and walked in. Just as he was confused about where to go to report, a soldier of similar age to him suddenly came not far away. He looked at Senior Wang Ling's shoulder straps, looked in awe, and asked, "Sir, who are you?" This was the first time Wan Ling heard this title. He always felt it was awkward. He twitched his lips, took out his report card and said, "I am Wan Ling. I was removed from the battlefield and assigned here." When the soldier heard this, he immediately realized, "So you are Master Wan Ling. I heard Brother Zhao tell me that all the reporting and other aspects are skipped. I will handle it directly on your behalf, he. This. It was the first time they met, but this person was quite enthusiastic, which made Wan Ling a little at a loss. After being embarrassed for a while, he smiled and said back, "Thank you then." "You're welcome, that's right. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, sir. I'm Lu Hui. I'm responsible for arranging some new people here and running errands. If you have any questions in the future, just ask me." Lu Hui, he introduced himself with a smile. Judging from his epaulets, he already had the rank of sergeant, which was 2 ranks lower than Wan Ling. Army commanders had a clear hierarchy, so of course he had to be polite to Wan Ling. Of course, the last time Wan Ling attacked Li Titu, a sergeant with the rank of sergeant, it was just a special case, not everyone would dare to do this. Wan Ling forced a smile and waved his hand, "Don't call me sir, I really can't bear it. I am just a newcomer here. You are my senior. Please be more considerate if there is anything you don't understand." "No, no, no, don't say that, I can't stand it. No one can achieve your military rank. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 113. Lu Hui refused repeatedly, and while taking Wan Ling's luggage, he said, "Since you don't allow me to call you sir, I'll just call you Brother Ling. Brother Ling, let's stop chatting. Let's go, I'll show you. Check out the dormitory. Hold head high." Wan Ling did not refuse and followed Lu Hui into the training base. The area of this police dog training base is not small, but there are not many houses. Most of the area is used as a training ground. Wan Ling's dormitory is near the training ground. Following Lu Hui here, Wan Ling looked at the training ground and found that there were more than 60 trainers on the ground, each training their own police dogs and doing various actions on the training ground. In Wan Ling's eyes, these normal trainings seemed like having a lot of fun. He smiled and asked, "Lu Hui, when training police dogs, does everyone only have one police dog?" Lu Hui also smiled and replied, "Yes, Brother Ling, police dogs are sometimes more emotional than humans. The best results are achieved when raised and trained one-on-one." "Then which one should I train and how?" Wan Ling asked again. He was very curious about this kind of question. But Lu Hui said, "Don't be impatient. It's a new arrival. I won't let you work right away." As they talked, the two came to a row of houses. Lu Ling opened the door of one of the rooms that he was very familiar with and walked in with Wan Ling. The area of this room is not large, only about 40 square meters at most. There are 2 bed frames inside. It is similar to Wan Ling's real dormitory, which is also divided into upper and lower floors. In addition, there are some furniture such as tables, chairs, benches, cabinets, and other daily necessities, neatly arranged. This is where Wan Ling will live in the Red Alert world from now on. On top of the 2 bedsteads and 4 beds, there are now 3 people living in them. The quilts are neatly placed on the bedside, but all the people are busy in the training ground. Lu Hui directly put Wan Ling's luggage on the last empty bed and explained, "Brother Ling, our training base also has special work and rest time. The specific standards are posted on the desk. You can take a look when you have time. Write it down. After lunch and rest, you can adopt a police dog that belongs to you to raise and train. As for the training standards, I will tell you then. You can rest here first. Get familiar with the environment. I won't accompany you anymore. If you have any questions, you can call me at any time. I'll be in the office at the end when nothing happens. Okay, get busy first. After Lu Hui left, Wang Ling stretched out, made his bed, and lay down on it. After stabilizing, Wang Ling took a few deep breaths and looked around. This four-person dormitory seemed quite cozy, and Wang Ling was quite satisfied with it. After lying down for a short time, Wang Ling stood up, memorized the timetable, looked at other things in the dormitory, and finally went out for a walk. After getting familiar with the environment here, he lay down back in the dormitory. During the break, it soon came to noon. Wang Ling's three roommates finally returned to the dormitory. They were a little surprised when they saw Wang Ling. Are there new people here? Wang Ling heard the sound, opened his eyes, glanced at them, and said hello casually. These three people did not have as much experience as Wang Ling. Two of them were still privates, and the highest rank was only an upper-class soldier, which was much different from Wang Ling's level. The two privates were fine, and they responded politely to Wang Ling, but the superior soldier laughed sinisterly. You're new here, are you lying down quite comfortable? Get up and get some hot water. When Wang Ling heard this, he slowly sat up, pointed at his nose and asked, are you talking about me? Nonsense, aren't you the only new guy here? Who are you? Stop talking nonsense and hurry up, the superior soldier scolded him carelessly. Wang Ling was speechless, but he didn't resist. He spread his hands and stood up. He picked up a kettle and wanted to walk out of the dormitory. But the superior soldier was not happy. Wait a minute, who asked you to take one, just for yourself? Do you, a newcomer, understand the rules? I said these four you have to hit it all. Good guy, it's Wang Ling's fault to bully the new recruits. After hearing this, Wang Ling suppressed his laughter. He just glanced at the superior soldier and asked funnily, are you sure? Hey, why do you talk so much nonsense? You. The first-class soldier was a little impatient, and was about to reprimand him, but the private soldier on the side quickly stopped him. Brother Niu, don't be so impulsive, look at his epaulets. Epaulets. The superior soldier was a little disinterested and casually glanced at Wang Ling's epaulets, but was immediately startled by the rank of the sergeant. Oh my God, sergeant! Not only him, but another private was also frightened. They were just new recruits and had never been on the battlefield. The man called Brother Niu was promoted to the rank of superior soldier because of his meritorious service. Suddenly, he saw a roommate of a sergeant and was almost bullied by them. Can this contrast and impact not scare them? But don't be afraid, the superior soldier waved his hand quickly, stopped the two of them, and asked, among the police dog trainers in our base, have you ever seen a master? The two privates shook their heads in a matter-of-fact manner. No, not to mention the chief sergeant, even the ordinary non-commissioned officer has not passed. The upper-class soldiers are rare, and the others are still recruits. The superior soldier came with confidence. That's all right, this place is not prepared for sergeants at all. He, a sergeant, suddenly came here. He must have made some big mistake and was devolved. Since he was devolved, then his military rank means nothing. He is at the same level as us. No, he is not as good as us, we are his seniors. As he spoke, the first-class soldier smiled. Well, now, even the sergeant has been bullied. If this spreads out, I will have bragging rights. Hey, what are you looking at? Don't talk about your rank as a sergeant. Fight quickly. Here comes the water, 4 pots. When they were talking, they didn't avoid anything at all. Wang Ling heard that it was true, but now he just felt like laughing. Instead of grabbing the remaining 3 kettles, he put down his own and said with a smile, I suddenly don't want to go anymore. Hey, you're a newbie, do you know the rules? You're new here, and you have to go through so much trouble to get hot water. The superior soldier was not happy. Wang Ling was not angry, but he rarely felt like having fun and twisted his neck. If you want to bully me, it depends on whether you are qualified. Come on, are you going alone or three of us? Superior. The three people glanced at each other. What do you mean? What else could it mean? Let's fight. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 114. Wang Ling smiled playfully and hooked his hand at the three of them. Come on, as long as you beat me, you can do anything you want, including getting some hot water. But if you lose, then you have to be more honest with me. Although Wang Ling is still a newcomer in the police dog training base, he has been on the battlefield personally after all, and has reached the rank of sergeant. How can he be bullied by these new recruits? When it comes to fighting, Wang Ling has never been afraid of anyone yet. Wang Ling's toughness also made the three recruits hesitate for a while. After hesitating for a while, the superior soldier gritted his teeth and said, I'll do it. Even though you are a sergeant, you don't necessarily have to fight. The recruits are great. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Wang Ling to answer, and stepped forward with a sneak attack. However, Wang Ling had been accustomed to this style of fighting during the barracks arena competition. How could he succeed? He suddenly raised his leg and kicked the side first. He kicked the superior soldier away and hit him with one kick. On the bed frame, even the bed frame was knocked away half a meter with a squeak. This fight started quickly and ended even faster. The superior soldier lost so happily. After landing, the first-class soldier also groaned. He held his chest for a while and touched his back for a while. It seemed to be quite uncomfortable. Brother Niu, are you okay? To Wang Ling's expectation, the two privates, instead of being worried, seemed to be gloating about their misfortune. Apparently, they were also bullied by this superior soldier when they first came here. Wang Ling didn't wait for the superior soldier to get up. He smiled and said, I am indeed a newbie here. If you want to teach you the methods and experience of training police dogs, I am always welcome. Treat me as a new recruit. If you treat me badly, you might get beaten. After finishing speaking, Wang Ling turned around and picked up two thermos kettles. I'll make you a pot of hot water this time as compensation for your medical expenses. If you still want to instruct me to do work in the future, it's simple. I have been feeling a little uncomfortable during this time, and I want to find someone to do something. Just let me beat him up. You are awesome. The superior soldier was also convinced by this kick, and his momentum was gone. Wang Ling shook his head, turned around and left the dormitory. After he left, the superior soldier groaned again. Ouch, oh, it hurts me so much. Why is this guy so cruel? A private on the side joked, Brother Niu, he didn't take action, he just moved his feet. But, what a big difference. You two little bastards, stop watching the show and help me up. The two of them then took action, helped the superior soldier up, and worked together to move the bed frame back to its original position. After sitting down, the first-class soldier took a few more breaths and became puzzled. This man is too strong, and he is also a senior officer. What did he commit and was sent down here? Thin Monkey, your source of information Guang, go and find out what happened to him. Okay. Not long after, Wang Ling finally returned to the dormitory with 2 pots of hot water and picked up the lunch box. What are you doing standing still? Isn't it time to eat now? Hey, okay, the 2 privates agreed happily. As for the upper-class soldier, he was a soldier after all, and his body was strong. Wang Ling didn't use his full strength in that kick. Now he has basically returned to normal. He didn't dare to bully Wang Ling and asked him to fetch food. He smiled awkwardly, picked up the lunch box and followed. We went to the cafeteria together. The meal time here is not long, and everyone eats very quickly. There are dozens of people in the cafeteria eating together, but few people talk, making it very quiet. After lunch, it was lunch break. Wang Ling lay on the bed and took a deep breath. As soon as he closed his eyes, the private on his upper bunk turned his head and asked, "Hey, brother, what do you call me?" Wang Ling answered as he opened his eyes. The private muttered, and then asked, "Brother Ling, you are already a sergeant, why were you suddenly transferred here?" Wang Ling shook his head, not wanting to answer this question. But the man still asked without giving up, "Since you are already a sergeant, what was your previous position in the army?" "I'm just a squad leader." He has commanded a few battles and achieved some achievements. Wang Ling recalled these achievements and couldn't help but sigh. Although Wang Ling said it lightly, the three of them were not stupid. They knew that Wang Ling did not want to mention those glory days, so they simply stopped asking Wang Ling about his past affairs and instead chatted with him casually. These three people were also familiar with each other. After the fight, they no longer regarded Wang Ling as a new recruit, but they did not pay much attention to Wang Ling's military rank. After all, their current positions were the same. During the chat, Wang Ling gradually became familiar with the three of them, and then he realized that the three of them had their own nicknames, namely Skinny Monkey, Fat Tiger, and Fat Ox. Hearing these nicknames, Wang Ling burst into laughter. "What kind of nicknames do you have? Should I be fat? Isn't I fat? Isn't I supposed to be thin? Isn't I supposed to be fat?" These three people have relatively well-proportioned figures, and are moderately fat and thin, but they have such nicknames, which is indeed a bit funny. The first-class soldier, also known as Fat Cow, replied with a cut sound, "A nickname is just a title. It refers to the previous figure. Brother Ling, it is a tradition in the army to bully new recruits, but you are breaking it here. He violated this tradition and in turn beat me up, which I am embarrassed to tell anyone. Haha, it's rare for Brother Niu to blush. Go, let's play, you two, please keep your mouths shut, or I'll kill you." After chatting for a while, they finally became a little tired, so they closed their eyes and started taking a lunch break. After a while, Wang Ling was sleeping soundly when he was suddenly awakened by the sound of a bugle. Even if it is a police dog training base, the schedules of these trainers cannot be too chaotic, and there are corresponding regulations. Wang Ling had rested for so long and wanted to see the police dogs for a long time. He jumped up immediately after hearing the sound of the horn, quickly finished cleaning up, followed Fei Niu and the three of them out, and found the right place to gather. On the training ground, Lu Hui and a powerful commander were already waiting. "Why do you say he is the commander?" "Because this person already had the rank of lieutenant." Lu Hui was standing behind him, and it seemed that he was just doing something to help. "I guess this person's position in this training base is not low." After everyone had gathered, the commander cleared his throat and spoke, "Today, we have a new member in our base, Wang Ling. Come on, welcome Wang Ling with a round of applause and introduce yourself." Different commanders have different attitudes and rituals towards new recruits. For example, this commander seems to care more about rituals. Others were no longer surprised by this welcome ceremony, and they all applauded after hearing this. Wang Ling didn't show any pretense and walked forward naturally. However, after others saw him, they were not calm anymore. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 115. When eating before, Wang Ling had also been to the cafeteria and met these trainers. But at that time, these people were also concentrating on preparing and eating, and did not pay much attention to Wang Ling. Now, Wang Ling stood directly in front of the formation. The people noticed Wang Ling's sergeant epaulets at the first sight. Except for Xiao Erhao and the three of them, almost all their eyes widened. "Master! What's going on? There's a trainer at the police dog training company base. There had been precedents of Slender Monkey and the three of them before. Wang Ling's reaction to these people was no longer surprising. He explained very calmly, I am Wang Ling. I once served as a squad leader on the battlefield and had some achievements. However, that's all in the past, and you don't need to care about the rank of sergeant. Now that I have been assigned here as a trainer due to personal issues, I am a comrade at the same level as you. If there is anything I don't understand in the future, I hope you can enlighten me. Although it is a virtual world, Wang Ling has been in the army for a while after all, so these remarks are quite grand. After hearing this, the others immediately applauded, and Wang Ling also returned to his original position amidst the applause. At this time, the commander finally said, although Wang Ling has a higher military rank than you, he is still a newcomer when it comes to training police dogs. As I said before, when dealing with newcomers, we should try our best to help him so that Wang Ling can adapt here as soon as possible. Life and training. Okay, no more unnecessary words, let's disband and go to training. After receiving the order, the others immediately dispersed and went to the kennel to lead the police dogs they were responsible for. Only Wang Ling was still standing there. He had not been assigned a police dog at the training base. The commander did not pay attention to these matters, turned around and left. Instead, Lu Hui stepped forward and took Wang Ling to a kennel alone. After opening the door, a black-backed cat about 1 year old was lying inside, sticking out its tongue and looking lazy. After seeing it, Lu Hui made a strange noise with his mouth, attracting Haibei's attention, but Haibei ignored him at all, just glanced at him, and kept shaking his head. Wang Ling was amused, is this my police dog? It looks so silly. Lu Hui also laughed and said, yeah, after all, I haven't trained yet. It hasn't been long since I came here, so I guess I haven't adapted to it yet. It just so happens that the two of you are familiar with each other and have adapted together. Wang Ling nodded, what's the name of this police dog? Lu Hui replied, it hasn't been named yet. You are its trainer, so naturally it is up to you to name it. After all, it will follow you in the future. That's it? Wang Ling thought for a while and suddenly had an idea, my name is Uncle He. As soon as he finished speaking, before Lu Hui had time to speak, Uncle He protested in his mind, no. This name doesn't work, change it. Naming a police dog Uncle He is the same as calling him an artificial intelligence. Of course Uncle He is not happy. But Wang Ling still didn't take it seriously, Uncle He, didn't you say you wouldn't interfere with the game process? Why are you suddenly protesting now? Uncle He's tone also got a little angry, is this called intervention? You just pointed at my nose and scolded me, and I couldn't even protest? If you dare to give it this name, I will deduct half of your points. Hey, Uncle He, you don't have the authority here or that. How come you have the authority to deduct points from me? Wang Ling was not satisfied either. However, this time, Uncle He was too lazy to pay attention to him. The person who spoke was Lu Hui instead, Brother Ling, are you correct? A police dog is a dog after all. You call a dog uncle. Wang Ling was caught off guard by his words. After being speechless for a while, he complained to Uncle He in his mind, hey, Uncle He, did you ask him to say that? Uncle He said in a gloating tone, don't accuse me wrongly. I designed the world of Red Alert, but these people have independent personalities. What do they say? What does it have to do with me? It's obviously your boy's doing. It's so ridiculous. You can do it? Wang Ling was too lazy to complain anymore. After struggling for a while, he said, how about taking a step back and calling Xiao He? Lu Hui nodded, that's okay. Although it's a bit simple, the name of the police dog doesn't need to be too complicated. After getting Lu Hui's approval, Wang Ling decided on the name, and then excitedly shouted Xiao He to He's back several times. However, Xiao He didn't bother to pay attention to Wang Ling, so Wang Ling was rejected. In real life, Wang Ling prefers dogs, but after all, he has never raised a dog before and has no experience at all. Now he is in a dilemma. Lu Hui, this guy Xiao He doesn't pay attention to me at all. What should I do? Lu Hui smiled. Simple, I'll give you this, you can draw it out. Wang Ling looked back and saw that it was a bag of small pieces of dried meat. Seeing the dried meat, Wang Ling knew what to do. After taking it, he took out a piece and slowly backed away while shouting Xiao He. And Xiao He is really a foodie. He didn't pay attention to anything he called him before, but now he was easily lured out by the dried meat. After eating the dried meat, Xiao He finally had a better attitude. Wang Ling held his leash, and he didn't resist. He obediently followed Wang Ling to the training ground. After arriving at the venue, Lu Huike said, "Brother Ling, you don't have to think about other training items today. The main task is to get familiar with Xiao He and make him recognize you as a trainer. If you can't handle this, then you will when training it, you may suffer a little bit. When you are fine, you should clean the kennel regularly. The police dog should not be too dirty. Then you can give it a bath, shave it, massage it, etc., and try to get as close as possible." Okay, Lu brother, every trainer has some secret ways to get close to each other, so you should slowly explore it yourself. I'll go and get busy first. Good. After Lu Hui left, Wang Ling looked at Xiao He happily, caressing the fur on his head, and babbled a few words from time to time, just like a lunatic. However, Xiao He seems to be only interested in dried meat. No matter how Wang Ling rubs it, its reaction is not too big. Only after eating the dried meat does it try to guess Wang Ling's intention, but will it give face? It depends on its mood. This person who trained the police dog was clearly a big brother. Thinking of this, Wang Ling felt a little dumbfounded. He couldn't keep giving it food, right? After thinking about it, Wang Ling simply followed Lu Hui's instructions and gave Xiao He a bath. However, while taking a bath, Wang Ling didn't know where he hurt it. This guy subconsciously bit Wang Ling's hand, and it drew blood immediately. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 116. Damn it, Xiao He, you don't have to be so cruel. Wang Ling was also startled by Xiao He's actions, and rarely got angry and scolded him. And this scolding seemed to frighten Xiao He in turn. His body shook violently, and then he yelled ouch twice, as if he was aggrieved. Seeing its appearance, Wang Ling suddenly realized that he couldn't get angry anymore. He smiled bitterly, rinsed the wound with water, and then continued to bathe Xiao He carefully. It was Wang Ling's first time to bathe a police dog, but he adapted and learned quickly. From being in a hurry at the beginning, he quickly became familiar with it. And Xiao He, from being uncomfortable and resisting at first, gradually accepted it and began to enjoy the feeling of taking a bath. Finally, after busying for a while and taking a bath, Wang Ling found a special comb and combed Xiao He's hair. After finishing combing, he took Xiao He to the edge of the training ground and basked in the sun. During this process, it was rare that there was no temptation of dried meat, and Xiao He was always cooperating. One person and one dog, this life is nourishing. While leisurely, Wang Ling also saw other trainers and police dogs. These people are obviously very experienced in training police dogs. Their police dogs, such as Labradors, Dobermans, etc., are very cooperative with their orders and perform various actions under various instructions. Naturally, there were exceptions among them. Some of them even wore thick armor and started fighting with the police dogs they trained. They fought fiercely, and they didn't know what they were training. After looking at them, Wang Ling turned to look at Xiaohe, who was lying lazily on the ground, snorted and shouted, "Xiaohe, stand up." However, Xiaohe didn't move, just rolled his eyes and glanced at him, and continued to bask in the sun. After being lazy, Xiaohe became disobedient again. No matter how Wang Ling greeted him, he just remained indifferent. As a last resort, Wang Ling could only continue to tempt him with dried meat. Wang Ling had seen the relationship between the trainer and the police dog on TV in real life before. While Wang Ling was envious, he also thought it was very simple. However, after seeing it in person, he realized how difficult it was. This afternoon, Wang Ling kept trying to communicate with Xiaohe, but with little success. But it can't be said that it was not effective. After staying together for so long, Xiaohe gradually got used to Wang Ling. During this period, Wang Ling deliberately left to test, but Xiaohe actually stood up and went after smelling the smell, looking for Wang Ling. This afternoon, it can be said that there is some enjoyment in the suffering. Finally at dusk, the training time was over. Wang Ling, like everyone else, took Xiaohe back to the kennel. But the difference is that the other trainers only gave verbal orders, and the police dogs walked into the kennel obediently, but Xiaohe still needed food to lure him. Afterwards, he fed Xiaohe some dinner, and today's training came to an end. On the way back to the dormitory, Wang Ling also met Lu Hui. It seemed that he wanted to watch the excitement. Lu Hui actually smiled and asked, "Brother Ling, how are you? Are you getting along well with Xiaohe?" Wang Ling's face darkened a little. This little black guy is so stupid. He seldom obeys if he doesn't give him meat to eat. It's depressing. Lu Hui smiled so happily that he said after laughing, "Brother Ling, you are all powerful on the battlefield, but here you are still a newcomer after all. You should communicate more with your roommates when you have time. Don't it seems that their military rank is not high, but they have more experience than you in training police dogs." New. That night, after having dinner and busy with some trivial matters, Wang Ling sat in front of the dormitory door in a daze, his thoughts wandering. Not long after, Slender Monkey, Fat Tiger and Fat Ox sat next to him one after another and asked, "Brother Ling, what are you thinking about just sitting there alone?" Wang Ling was no stranger to the three of them, so he didn't hide it from them. "I miss my police dog. It's so difficult to take care of." The thin monkey and the fat cow were happy when they heard this, but the fat tiger was more patient. "Brother Ling, tell me, what did you do with your police dog this afternoon?" Wang Ling thought about it for a moment, and then told Xiaohe everything about what happened this afternoon. After listening, Xiaohao made a suggestion, "Brother Ling, this won't work. Giving food to a police dog is usually a reward, not a temptation. If you let it get used to it and stop working without eating, then you will spoil it when you go to the battlefield and see the enemy. Eat first before taking action. The daylilies are already cold." Wang Ling was helpless. "I know this too, but it just won't cooperate without eating. What should I do?" The person who answered this time was Fei Niu. "Brother Ling, you have today too. Are you caught off guard? The police dog is not your tool, it is your partner. You have to accept this partner from the bottom of your heart. This is the prerequisite." Xiaohao also said, "Yes, whether a police dog is stupid or naive is actually a question of the trainer. When you first come into contact with a police dog, it is inevitable that you will not get used to it. We were also like this at the beginning. We tried to talking to a police dog is actually not very useful. No matter how smart the police dog is, it is still a dog. It cannot understand human words and can only guess slowly. You have to spend time with it and gradually develop a tacit understanding before it can guess accurately. Your thoughts?" Fat Tiger also added, "Yes, don't worry about this thing. After all, it is not the same species, and you don't understand dog language. In getting along and training, you can force it to do something first. As long as you do it, it will be there. Give it food rewards, or touch its head, etc. to tell it that it has done it correctly. A gesture or a command must let it know what it means. It doesn't matter if it makes a mistake, it can be corrected, but if it does something bad, such as biting people indiscriminately, it must be trained and stopped immediately so that it knows what it can and cannot do. These three people were indeed more experienced than Wang Ling in training police dogs. That night, they gave Wang Ling many tips and tricks, and Wang Ling also benefited from them. After saying this, Xiao Hao asked again, "Yes, Brother Ling, we have been talking for so long, what will you name your police dog?" "Xiao He," Wang Ling replied without thinking. Fat Tiger said, "This name is relatively normal." Wang Ling was curious, "Normal? Why, there are abnormal names. What do you name the police dogs?" The person who answered was Fat Niu, "It's gone to the sea." The thin monkey's police dog is Haozi, the fat tiger's is Huniu, and mine is Bull Demon. Others also have various names, some are directly dog, and some are Wang Ke, Ahua, etc. The funniest thing is that we have a trainer here named Lu Zuzi, who named his police dog Zuzi. When he asked us to call him, he called him Lao Lu, but we just called him Zuzi. He was very depressed at first, but then he gradually got used to it. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 117. Wang Ling was happy when he heard this. I guess Lu Zuzi's mood was the same as Uncle He's mood when he named Xiao He Uncle He today. What a twist. That's not even the funniest thing. Fei Niu continued, "Our training instructor is Sergeant Lu Hui, and there happened to be a fool who named his police dog Huizi." Ouch, you didn't know, Sergeant Lu Hui was so angry that he just hit that fool. He was scolded and forced to change the name of the police dog. Although Lu Hui was polite in front of Wang Ling, after all, Wang Ling's military rank was 2 ranks higher than his. He didn't dare to reprimand Wang Ling at all. He had to be humble. However, in front of this group of new recruits, Lu Hui was full of momentum. Wang Ling didn't find it strange, and just asked, "Who is this idiot?" "Haha, of course. Brother Niu, please don't slap someone in the face, and don't expose someone's shortcomings. Please stop talking, please." Fei Niu was about to break the news, but Fat Hu quickly stopped him. Although he didn't directly say who it was, Fat Hu had obviously admitted that the idiot in the emotional fat cow's mouth turned out to be Fat Hu. Seeing Fat Tiger's embarrassment, Wang Ling burst into laughter. Wang Ling was still depressed at first, but after listening to them talk about these things tonight, his mood suddenly became brighter. The 4 of them sat together and chatted casually for a while before dispersing. After washing up, they went to their own beds. After staying in the Red Alert world for 2 days, Wang Ling was somewhat tired. He simply contacted Uncle He tonight and returned to the transfer station of the interdimensional system. In the transfer station, Uncle He still had a harmless smile. "Boy, police dog trainer, I really have you." Wang Ling looked at Uncle He, and suddenly thought of Xiao He again. Recalling the scenes that made Uncle He depressed during the day, Wang Ling felt a little relieved. He stretched and replied, "This unit is quite good. In reality, I have always wanted to raise a dog, but my mother has always refused to agree. Then I will have fun in the world of Red Alert." Uncle He shook his head and his face became a little more serious. "Then when do you plan to return to the battlefield?" As soon as the battlefield was mentioned, Wang Ling's expression immediately dimmed. Uncle He is still talking, "The police dog training base is very peaceful and harmonious, and you don't have to face the smoke and fire of the battlefield, but you don't belong here. This place can only let you retire, without any strengthening effect, not even points. There are only survival points. Only by going to the battlefield to kill enemies and making more military exploits is the right way to become stronger." Wang Ling stared back. Become stronger? Maybe I was still dreaming about it before, but now it feels particularly ironic. The war is ruthless, and everyone else is just a program, but I am a real person. If I die on the battlefield, even a person like me, there is no one to announce the funeral of my parents. How do you expect me to accept it? Uncle Hay was also a little angry. Are you afraid of death? Boy, do you know that your idea is very cowardly? Do you want to live with a police dog for the rest of your life? That's enough, Uncle Hay. Wang Ling took a few deep breaths and shook his head. Don't mention this matter for now, let me go back to the real world. After saying that, Wang Ling disappeared from the transfer station. Facing Wang Ling in this state, Uncle Hay was filled with helplessness and sighed repeatedly. In real life, it was already midnight when Wang Ling returned. After opening his eyes, Wang Ling sat up and stretched. He was just about to drink some water and go to the toilet to continue sleeping. However, as soon as he reached out his hand, he noticed the scars on his hand. This was someone who was bitten by Xiao He in the Red Alert world. According to the shortcomings of the different dimensional system, he would naturally be injured in reality. After this period of time, the blood on his wound has dried and scabbed, and it is not too painful to move. However, Wang Ling looked at the wound and felt a little uneasy. After all, it was bitten by a dog, and the hidden danger was not small. But just when he was about to ask Uncle Hay something, he suddenly remembered that he was still arguing with Uncle Hay just now. After hesitating, he gave up the idea and turned out Professor Li Dong's business card, not caring about the time. Call him directly. Unexpectedly, Professor Li Dong was not asleep yet, and he quickly answered the phone. Hello, hello, who are you? Wang Ling replied, it's me, Professor Li, the student who stopped you at the school gate last time to ask questions. Wang Ling. Professor Li Dong was busy with everything, and some time had passed since his last lecture. Wang Ling had no hope that Professor Li Dong could remember him. But in fact, people just remembered, oh, it's you, that little guy who is very interested in deep hypnosis. Wang Ling smiled and asked, Teacher Li, why aren't you asleep yet? Professor Li Dong also smiled and replied, you haven't slept either? I'm still preparing lessons and sorting out copywriting. It's probably time to go to bed in a while. You called at the right time. I won't answer the phone if it's later. Tell me, what's the problem this time? Wang Ling was not polite to him. I would like to ask, if I was bitten by a dog during deep hypnosis, do I need to get a rabies vaccine in reality? Teacher Li. Your question is really tricky, Professor Li Dong replied. Over the phone, Wang Ling seemed to hear Professor Li Dong's depression, and couldn't help but laugh. I'm curious, Teacher Li, do you need a call? There was no way, Wang Ling was pestering him like this, and it was not good for Professor Li Dong not to answer. He pondered for a while before analyzing, this is not easy to answer. If the dog that bit you during deep hypnosis has rabies, there's no guarantee whether your brain will react with symptoms of rabies, so it's best to get a shot. But what? If the dog that bit you during deep hypnosis does not have rabies itself, or has been vaccinated in advance, you don't have to worry about anything in reality. That's good. Wang Ling was finally relieved. The health of the police dogs in the army could still be guaranteed. Professor Li Dong answered Wang Ling's nonsensical question, and now he is probably a little bit amused. You little guy, your thinking is really different from ordinary people. Okay, do you have any more questions? No, I'm disturbing Teacher Li. Okay, I'll hang up if it's okay. I haven't finished finishing the copy yet. Okay, good night, Teacher Li. The call was finally hung up. Although the question seemed nonsensical, Wang Ling was still a little uneasy until it was clear. And when Wang Ling came back from the toilet and lay on the bed again, Uncle Hay finally couldn't help laughing. You kid, Are you so afraid of the other dimensional system? You are so worried about being bitten by a dog. All this since when are you still embarrassing people by calling me? Why don't you just ask me? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 118. Asking you directly? Do you have the authority to tell me? Wang Ling was a little disdainful. And Uncle He was speechless for a while by his words. After a while, Wang Ling asked, Uncle He, who is the bastard who gave you the permissions? These permissions seem to be specifically aimed at me and to torment me. It's really infuriating. Regarding this kind of question, Uncle He lost his temper again. I don't have the authority to tell you the answer. Bah! We were talking about permissions, and you said you don't have permissions. Wang Ling rolled his eyes. No matter how Uncle He explained, he didn't want to nag anymore. Wang Ling was tired after all the hard work, so he simply closed his eyes and soon fell asleep. Once the biological clock is formed, it is difficult to change it. Wang Ling left the battlefield in the Red Alert world and no longer had the same sense of urgency as before. However, early the next morning, he woke up naturally. Wang Ling was stunned for a while after getting up. After hesitating for a while, he ran to the playground for morning exercises after washing up. However, now his morning exercises are not as rigorous as before. He takes a rest when he is tired and does not push himself to the point where he cannot move anymore. The real life of this day was still the same, without any changes, and it soon came to night in the monotony. Although he was very wary of the hidden dangers of the extra-dimensional system, after all, the location had been changed, so Wang Ling didn't have to worry about anything for a while, and he naturally entered the Red Alert world again. In a new environment, without the group of comrades in the Eagle Squad, but with the addition of these three roommates, Wang Ling was filled with emotions about this change. Listening to the snoring of the three roommates, Wang Lingli gradually fell asleep after a while. Early the next morning, Wang Ling was woken up by the wake-up call. All the trainers in the training base quickly got up and gathered to start their morning run. Although he is at the rear of the battlefield, the police dog trainer is also a soldier after all, so he cannot fall behind too much in physical training and needs to practice every day. However, the intensity of the exercise here is not very strong. The distance of the morning run is not as far as Wang Ling's morning exercise in the real world, so naturally he will not be very tired. After a short rest after the morning run, many trainers began to eat. After breakfast, Wang Ling also followed the practices of other trainers and started feeding Xiaohe. Yesterday, although Xiaohe was too lazy to pay attention to Wang Ling most of the time, after spending this afternoon together, Wang Ling also fed him a lot of dried meat, and he obviously got to know Wang Ling. Today, when Wang Ling opened the kennel and saw Xiaohe, the guy was still lying lazily. But as soon as he saw Wang Ling, the guy immediately raised his head and barked at Wang Ling. Then she looked at him with her tongue hanging out, as if she was saying hello. Wang Ling was also amused. He stepped forward and touched the dog's head, and then poured the morning dog food into Xiaohe's lunchbox. Xiaohe is indeed a foodie. When he saw the dog food, he immediately became excited. He jumped up and started to gobble it up. After finishing eating, the guy shook his body again and licked his mouth, looking very satisfied. You look really stupid like this. Wang Ling was a bit dumbfounded. Xiaohe, it's okay for you to be stupid, but you have to be obedient and don't make things difficult for me all the time. After saying that, Wang Ling walked out of the kennel and waved to Xiaohe, come out, Xiaohe. Wang Ling was already ready to seduce him with dried meat, but unexpectedly, Xiaohe ran out very obediently and followed Wang Ling, shaking his head and wagging his tail. Anyway, compared to coaxing it out like an old man yesterday, this is a lot of progress. Afterwards, Wang Ling took Xiaohe and ran directly to the training ground. The other trainers were already playing with their respective police dogs, but Wang Ling's time with Xiao He was still too short after all. He often ordered it not to move, so he was not in a hurry to train. He spent the whole morning trying to talk to Xiao He. Black cultivates feelings. However, this little black guy is also very stupid. Without the temptation of dried meat, no matter what he does, it seems to be based on his mood, and it makes Wang Ling laugh and cry. Finally at noon, Wang Ling took Xiao He to the kennel, fed him some lunch, and then went to have dinner with the three of them. After returning to the dormitory and lying on the bed, Wang Ling stretched hard. Just when he was about to sleep, Xiao Erhao asked, "Brother Ling, how are you getting along with Xiao He today?" Thinking of Xiao He, Wang Ling felt a bit dumbfounded. It's not going too well, but at least it knows me and I can call it. Haha, just make progress. As time goes by, the relationship will deepen. Xiao He will be a good partner, Fei Niu also said. Fat Tiger suggested, emotions have to be cultivated, but you can't spoil them in the process. They can be easily trained. It seemed that it was rare to catch up with a roommate from a master's degree. These three people were quite excited when they talked. During the lunch break, they explained some training techniques to Wang Ling in detail, and Wang Ling also explained everything used. The lunch break passed quickly. At the sound of the horn, all the trainers got up quickly. After gathering, they each pulled out the police dogs and continued the training this afternoon. According to Fat Tiger, it's time for Wang Ling to simply train Xiao He. However, he looked at Xiao He who was lazily basking in the sun, and he was a little embarrassed. Would this guy be so obedient? With this question in mind, Wang Ling finally began to give the order, "Xiao He, sit down." Xiao He glanced at him and tilted his head slightly. He seemed to have failed to guess what Wang Ling meant, so he simply ignored him and continued to bask in the sun. Knew it? Wang Ling had no choice but to pat his forehead, and then directly moved to press down Xiao He's lower body, keeping him in a sitting position. During this process, Xiao He did not resist. Wang Ling forced Xiao He to complete this action, and then quickly gave him a piece of dried meat, saying that this was the right thing to do. "Stand up," then, Wang Ling raised his hand and began to order again. But this time, Xiao He was smarter and stood up obediently without Wang Ling taking action. He stuck out his tongue and looked at Wang Ling, as if he was begging for food. Wang Ling didn't embarrass it and quickly stuffed it with a piece. For a period of time that followed, Wang Ling repeated these two most basic commands over and over again. As time went by, Xiao He finally remembered this command and was able to cooperate with it without having to use food to tempt him. Although it was just a simple action, Wang Ling felt joy from the bottom of his heart when he saw this achievement, even happier than winning a battle on the battlefield. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 119. Although this comparison is exaggerated and ridiculous, Wang Ling does feel this way in his heart now. In his excitement, he couldn't help but stroke Xiao He's dog head for a while. Not only did Xiao He not object to Wang Ling's actions, he closed his eyes and stuck out his tongue, seeming to actually enjoy it. After caressing for a while, Wang Ling also began to explore other commands. He deliberately distanced himself and waved to Xiao He, "Xiao He, come here." This time, Xiao He cooperated very well with him. He stood up and trotted towards Wang Ling, stopping at his feet and wagging his tail. Wang Ling stroked its forehead repeatedly, and then tested it several times. It seems that this kind of action is easy to predict. Xiao He cooperates every time. This feeling of raising a dog for the first time really makes Wang Ling happy. After two actions in succession, Wang Ling was not satisfied and continued with the third one. He threw the dagger he carried far away in front of Xiao He's face, and then quickly ordered, "Xiao He, pick it up." But this time, Xiao He failed to guess what he meant. He shook his head and sat down in front of Wan Ling. Wan Ling was depressed, with a dark face, and started to push Xiao He from behind, forcing him to get to the dagger. Seeing the dagger at close range, Xiao He tentatively sniffed it, seeming to smell Wan Ling's scent, then picked it up and handed it to Wan Ling's hand. After giving the food reward, Wan Ling threw the dagger away and continued to give orders. There was forced guidance last time, but Xiao He learned the lesson this time and quickly ran over and took the dagger back. This afternoon, through this method, Wan Ling also made Xiao He remember a lot of passwords and gestures. Although they are just simple movements and behaviors, Wan Ling feels a great sense of accomplishment in his heart. He practices over and over again and never tires of it. In the interdimensional system transfer station, Uncle He looked at Wan Ling's current state, and his expression became sluggish. "It's just a police dog, why is he so happy?" Even after wiping out the Allied base, I have never seen him smile like this before. Human beings are indeed very strange. It seems that I still don't understand humans well enough. Wan Ling couldn't hear what Uncle He said. He played with Xiao He for a long time at the training base until the training time was over. Then he reluctantly sent Xiao He back to the kennel and fed him some dinner. When they went to bed that night, before Xiao Hao and the other three could ask, Wan Ling took the initiative to talk to them about today's training with Xiao He. The change was huge, but quite obvious. Wan Ling waited until the three of them were tired, then gave up and contacted Uncle He and returned to the real world. No matter how real the Red Alert world is, it is still a virtual system. Although Wan Ling can find fun in it, he does not want to confuse reality and virtuality. After the game stabilizes, real life must continue. Wan Ling's battlefield phobia is just a term in the Red Alert world. To put it bluntly, what he fears is not war, but death. After all, the different dimensional system is a double-edged sword. Wan Ling certainly felt fear, but far away from the battlefield in the Red Alert world, this fear symptom was greatly reduced. In the days to come, Wan Ling's work and rest habits also adjusted back to the previous state, going back and forth between the real world and the Red Alert world, as if he was living in two worlds at the same time. In these days, Wan Ling has become completely accustomed to life in the police dog training base. He is becoming more and more familiar with Xiao He and is becoming more and more comfortable in training. After some simple commands and gestures in the early stage, Wan Ling also began to try other difficult movements. It was indeed difficult for Xiao He to complete at first, but after a series of training, Xiao He became more and more flexible and gradually caught up. Follow other steps in training police dogs. On this day, Wan Ling specially brought Xiao He to the obstacle course. Xiao He has challenged this place several times before, but each time it ended in failure. After so long, it was finally time for Xiao He to challenge again. Wan Ling led Xiao He to the entrance, made a few simple gestures, then pointed at the obstacles in front, and then shouted, "Xiao He, rush over." Over the past few days, Xiao He's guesses at Wan Ling's orders have become more and more accurate. After receiving the order, he immediately went to full speed and rushed across the gravel track, crossed the rubber ring, climbed up the high-rise ladder, crossed the stone wall, and surrounded. After running around the entire obstacle course and passing through many obstacles, they finally returned to the starting point. Xiao He succeeded in this day's challenge. Seemingly knowing the situation, Xiao He was also very excited. When he came back, he jumped on Wan Ling, knocking Wan Ling upside down, pinned him down and kept licking Wan Ling's face, causing Wan Ling to fall. It was so ticklish that I kept laughing. After being happy for a while, Lu Hui suddenly appeared not far away. Lu Hui also saw Xiao He's performance today, and couldn't help but admire him at this time. "Brother Ling, it's okay." Xiao He didn't train for long, and he was able to conquer the obstacle course. Wan Ling heard the sound, sat up, held Xiao He aside, and while feeding the dried meat, he said with a smile, "This is not my fault, it's Xiao He who has made too much progress. I just gave it to him, it's just giving orders, it's the one who actually operates." While talking, Wang Ling couldn't help but stroke Xiao He's dog's head. And Xiao He also enjoyed this feeling very much, holding the dried meat in his mouth, his eyes seemed to be bent with laughter. Seeing such a close pair, Lu Hui was also sincerely happy. This obstacle training ground is not connected to other venues. While Wang Ling was training Xiao He here, the trainers in other training grounds were deserting. And the organizer of this mission turned out to be Wang Ling's roommate, Xiao Hao. Hey, guys, I've heard about Brother Ling's deeds. If you want to hear about it, come over here. His rallying slogan was also very simple. However, other people were really attracted to him and gathered around him to urge him. After all, Wang Ling was training police dogs here as a sergeant. It was so unusual that they couldn't help but be curious. Slender Monkey cleared his throat. "Don't be frightened if I tell you. Stop playing riddles and just tell me." He, Brother Ling is quite amazing. When we were in the barracks, he made a fool of himself during training and was dubbed the worst in the army. Is it true? The worst in the whole army. Now we are all sergeants, so who are we? Don't worry, I haven't finished talking yet. Brother Ling's past is full of magic. After getting this title, Brother Ling was not discouraged. He trained hard and gradually surpassed the others. At first their company had a conflict with the first company, and they once held a competition. During the second simulated capture the flag drill, a group of mysterious soldiers suddenly came in, loaded their guns with live ammunition, and shot many of them dead. Brother Ling was also present. He should have been afraid, but instead of being afraid, he relied on the terrain and killed all the mysterious soldiers one by one. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 120. Holy shit, so fierce. Is that a real enemy? Let Brother Ling kill them all by himself. Oh my god, I really answered that sentence, don't mess with honest people. I think Brother Ling had been suppressing it for too long, but he exploded all of a sudden, shocking everyone. Hearing this, the trainers were all surprised and started talking about it. The thin monkey cleared his throat and continued to say, "Don't worry, this is just the beginning." After that outbreak, Brother Ling was like a god, and his rise became more and more powerful. Then in the third arena match, he one person defeated 99 people in the first company. My dear. One person? 99 people? Is this still a person? It was another revelation, and many trainers were simply shocked after hearing it. Among them, the one who felt the deepest feeling was Fei Niu. Fortunately, I gave in early and realized that Brother Ling can fight so fiercely. Fat Tiger laughed at the side and said, "Haha, Brother Niu, did you hit the iron plate? How did you bully us before?" "Bah! Don't blame me, you're not as good as Brother Ling," Fei Niu glared at him. Then, Xiao Hao continued, "At that time, Brother Ling's training time was actually not too long, and the recruit period had not even reached the time of being awarded the title. However, Captain Ling Fei at the time personally put on the epaulets of a superior soldier on him, and valued Brother Ling, and sent him to the battlefield in advance for training. Not to mention, Brother Ling was a dazzling presence no matter where he was placed. On the battlefield, Brother Ling led his team to guard the mines and block attacks. Allied mine carts attacked the Allied base, and later, with the strength of a small team, they overran the entire Allied base, and only then did they obtain the rank of Grand Sergeant. Histing the Allied forces base. This is so strong. Is this Brother Ling's past? It's just like listening to a story, it's really exciting. Hey, I've decided, Brother Ling will be my idol from now on. When another piece of violent news broke out, the trainers at the scene were stunned. They were new recruits and had never had direct contact with the battlefield. They were full of curiosity about the battlefield. Now they heard about Wang Ling's achievements on the battlefield. How could they not be excited? Wang Ling, a legendary scholar, may have left an indelible impression in their hearts. After a while, Lu Zizhu asked, "Brother Ling is so strong and has such a dazzling record, why is he now working with us as a police dog trainer?" That's right. Logically speaking, shouldn't Brother Ling be a great hero? Why was he still demoted? That's not fair. What's going on? When other people heard this, they also urged it, and they were also very curious and angry about this issue. Xiao Erhao sighed, "Actually, I couldn't believe it when I first heard about the reason. When Brother Ling led the team to launch a general attack on another allied base, he suddenly became ill, trembling all over, and stopped the troops. The officers at the base really didn't dare to let Brother Ling stay on the battlefield in that state, so they temporarily dispatched Brother Ling here." Is that so? Brother Ling came here to recuperate from illness. Let me tell you, how could a great scholar come to our place? That's not surprising, but Xiao Erhao, what kind of disease does Brother Ling have? Why haven't I seen anything unusual about Brother Ling these days? Thin Monkey spread his hands, "Who knows? My information channel is pretty good for finding out these things. I don't know the details. Maybe he received treatment before coming here." Really? Do you think Brother Ling was frightened at first, but he returned to normal when he came here? Go away. Are you talking like a human being? If Brother Ling is afraid, how can he possibly overwhelm the entire allied base? Yet too. This group of trainers had been discussing Wang Ling's past for too long, and all of them were very interested in Wang Ling. While the discussion was getting heated, Lu Hui's voice suddenly came from the distance, "Hey, hey, hey. What are you guys doing? Don't train well." Upon hearing the sound, the group of trainers were all startled. Looking back, it turned out that Lu Hui had arrived at the training ground at some point, accompanied by the delighted Wang Ling and Xiao He. This group of trainers had just listened to Wang Ling's past, and now that they saw Wang Ling, they couldn't help but feel a little hot inside. They failed to pay attention to Lu Hui at the moment, and instead collectively gave Wang Ling a military salute. However, not to mention Wang Ling, even Lu Hui thought this military salute was for him, and immediately snorted and said, "Okay, don't be lazy, keep training." Others couldn't explain it. After all, they were asking about Wang Ling's past without telling Wang Ling. They could only smile awkwardly and disperse to continue training their respective police dogs. After Wang Ling sent Lu Hui away, he joined their circle and trained Xiao He as usual. However, Wang Ling didn't know if it was an illusion. He always felt that someone was secretly staring at him while he was training, but he didn't look into it in detail, nor did he think that this was because his past had been publicized. Because of that, during the training, it was already late at night before he knew it. As usual, Wang Ling took Xiao He into the kennel and fed him some dinner. After dinner, he sat in front of the dormitory, thinking about the past and sighing about the future. While he was sitting idle, Xiao Erhao and the other three people also came up and chatted happily with Wang Ling. Soon after, even the trainers from other dormitories rushed over and sat around, chatting casually. These people, I don't know if it was discussed in advance, but they all didn't mention Wang Ling's past and just chatted casually. After Wang Ling left the Eagle Squad, he was originally in a heavy mood, but after staying here for so long, he gradually became familiar with them. He slowly let go and looked away, and now he is naturally happy to be with them. Small talk. A large group of old men gathered together, and there were many talkative ones among them. Naturally, there was no shortage of topics. These people sometimes talked about interesting things that happened in the army, and sometimes talked about things that made Wang Ling blush. When people are together, they laugh happily. During the chat, time passed quickly. Wang Ling felt that not long after, Lu Hui came over with a flashlight and glanced at them. Are you still chatting? I don't care how you communicate with each other, but look at what time it is now. Are you still sleeping, and are you going to train tomorrow? Wang Ling and the others felt bored by the sudden intrusion of such a disruptive person, but it was indeed too late now, so they simply dispersed and went back to their respective dormitories. After casually washing, they fell on the bed. And Wang Ling naturally returned to the transfer station of the different dimensional system. He was about to return to the real world, but Uncle Hay suddenly said, "Boy, congratulations.